My daughter-in-law locked me out of the courtroom. She cried when the judge announced I owned everything. The courtroom door slammed shut in my face. I stood there, hands trembling, my heart pounding like a drum. My daughter-in-law, Karen, had just locked me out, her smirk barely hidden as she turned away. Inside, my late husband's estate was being divided, and I was supposed to be there. I'd spent 30 years building a life with Tom, raising our kids, paying off our home, and now I was shut out like a stranger. I pressed my ear to the door, catching muffled voices. Karen's sharp laugh cut through. "She doesn't belong here," she said. I could almost see her tossing her blonde hair, acting like she owned everything. My everything. I banged on the door, my knuckles stinging. "Let me in!" I shouted, voice cracking. No answer, just whispers and footsteps fading. My chest tightened. Years of love, sacrifice, and promises were slipping away. I slid down to the cold floor, tears burning my eyes. How did it come to this? How did my family turn against me? I wasn't just fighting for money. This was about my home, my memories, my life with Tom. And Karen thought she could steal it all. Hey, before we dive deeper, let me know where you're watching from. Drop your city and country in the comments. It's amazing to see how far these stories travel. Now let's go back to how this all started. It wasn't always like this. Rewind 6 months, and I was Scarlett, a 62-year-old widow from Raleigh, North Carolina, still figuring out life without Tom. He passed last spring, leaving a hole in my heart and a mess in our family. Our cozy 2-story house filled with photos of our kids and grandkids felt empty. But I kept going, tending the garden Tom loved, paying the bills, holding on to the life we built. I never imagined my own family would try to take it from me. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the days when family meant everything. Tom and I had 2 kids, Michael and Emily. Michael, our oldest, was always the responsible one, married to Karen, with 2 kids of their own. Emily, my baby, moved to Seattle for work, but we talked every week. Growing up, our house was loud with laughter, birthday parties, and Sunday dinners. Tom and I worked hard, him at the hardware store, me as a school secretary. We saved every penny for that house, our pride and joy. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. Michael was always close to his dad. They'd spend hours fixing cars or fishing at Lake Johnson. Karen, though? She came into the picture later when Michael was 30. She was charming at first, brought casseroles, smiled at family barbecues. But I noticed things. The way she'd interrupt Tom when he spoke. How she'd roll her eyes when I talked about our grandkids. "She's just stressed," Michael would say, brushing it off. I wanted to believe him. Then there was the favoritism. Karen always pushed Michael to ask Tom for money. First for their wedding, then for a new car, then for their kids' private school. Tom gave what he could, but I saw the strain in his eyes. "Scarlett, we can't keep doing this," he'd whisper at night. I'd nod, but we never wanted to hurt Michael. Emily, on the other hand, never asked for a dime. She'd call to check on us, send homemade cookies for Christmas. She was there, even from miles away. When Tom got sick, things got worse. Karen started visiting more, but not to help. She'd ask about the house, the savings, even Tom's old watch collection. "Just curious," she'd say, smiling too wide. I'd catch her eyeing our furniture, like she was already measuring it for her own place. Michael? He was quieter, torn between his wife and us. I tried talking to him once, alone in the kitchen. "Michael, your dad's not even gone yet. Why is she so focused on what we have?" He looked away, muttering, "She just wants the best for the kids." After Tom's diagnosis, I was the one changing his sheets, driving him to chemo, holding his hand through the pain. Karen showed up maybe twice, always with excuses. "Work's crazy," she'd say, checking her phone. Emily flew in when she could, crying with me at night. But Karen? She only appeared when the end was near, asking about the will. I didn't know it then, but she was already plotting. The day Tom passed, I sat by his hospital bed holding his hand. He squeezed it weakly, whispering, "Scarlett, you're my rock. Keep our home safe." I promised I would. I didn't know I'd have to fight for it. The funeral was held at St. Mary's Church in Raleigh, North Carolina, under a sky heavy with rain. The air inside was thick with the scent of lilies and damp wool coats. I sat in the front pew, gripping Emily's hand, my eyes locked on Tom's mahogany casket draped in white roses. My chest felt like it was caving in, but I held myself together. For Tom, for our kids, for the life we'd built. The church was packed. Neighbors, Tom's old co-workers from the hardware store, distant cousins. But beneath the grief, a current of tension ran through the room, sharp as a blade. Karen sat 2 rows back with Michael and their 2 kids, her black dress pristine, her posture too perfect. She looked like she was auditioning for a role, not mourning her father-in-law. Michael kept his head down, his tie crooked, avoiding my gaze. During the service, I caught Karen whispering to her sister-in-law, Lisa, who'd driven up from Charlotte. "This church is so old-fashioned," Karen hissed, her voice carrying over the organ music. "They should have picked somewhere nicer." Lisa stifled a laugh, and my stomach churned. My husband was lying in a casket, and they were critiquing the venue. At the reception in the church hall, the tension boiled over. I was pouring coffee for Tom's old fishing buddy, Mr. Carter, when Karen cornered me by the dessert table. Her heels clicked on the linoleum as she approached, her blonde hair pulled tight in a bun. "Scarlett, we need to talk about the house," she said, her voice low but sharp, like she'd practiced it. I froze, the coffee pot burning my hand. "What about it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She stepped closer, her lavender perfume overwhelming. "It's too much for you now, don't you think? All that space, just you rattling around. Michael and I could take it off your hands, for the kids' future." Her smile was cold, her eyes gleaming with something I couldn't name. I mumbled, "I need time to think," and turned away, my face hot with anger. Later, I overheard her again, this time by the coat rack with Lisa. "She's too old to handle that property," Karen said, her voice dripping with pity. "It's only fair Michael gets it. He's the son, after all." Lisa nodded, smirking. "Yeah, what's Scarlett gonna do? Sit there knitting until she's 90? They laughed, a sharp, cruel sound that hit me like a punch. I wanted to storm over, to tell them this was Tom's day, not theirs. But I stayed quiet, my hands shaking as I stacked paper plates. I wouldn't let them ruin this moment. Michael barely spoke to me all day. When I hugged him goodbye, his arms were stiff, his eyes fixed on the floor. "We'll figure it out, Mom," he muttered, almost like an apology. I wanted to grab his shoulders, ask why he let Karen talk like that. But I just nodded, my throat tight. Emily, though, saw everything. As we cleaned up the hall, she pulled me aside. "Mom, Karen's acting like she already owns the place," she whispered, her brown eyes wide with worry. "Something's not right." I didn't want to admit it, but the knot in my gut told me she was right. A week later, we gathered in Mr. Grayson's law office in downtown Raleigh. The room was small, with dark wood paneling and a desk buried under folders. Grayson, our lawyer, had been Tom's friend for decades, gray-haired, soft-spoken, with a sharp mind. I'd always trusted him. But that day he seemed off. He fidgeted with his pen, his eyes darting away whenever I looked at him. "We'll go over the will soon," he said, his voice clipped. "Just need to finalize some details." Details? What details? My heart thudded. Something wasn't adding up. Karen sat next to Michael, her hand resting possessively on his arm. She peppered Grayson with questions about the house, Tom's savings, even his old Chevy parked in our garage. "That car's a classic, isn't it? Worth a good amount," she said, her smile too bright. Grayson nodded vaguely, his fingers tapping the desk. I caught him glancing at me once, his expression soft, almost guilty. It was odd, but I told myself I was imagining things. Losing Tom had me seeing shadows everywhere. Then came the moment that changed everything. As we left the office, Emily grabbed my arm in the parking lot, her face pale. "Mom, I heard something at the funeral," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Uncle Ray, Dad's cousin, was talking to his wife about a letter." I frowned. "What letter?" Emily hesitated, glancing around like someone might overhear. "He said Dad gave Grayson something right before he passed. A letter. Maybe a new will." Ray didn't know much, just that Dad was insistent about it. My breath caught. Tom hadn't mentioned anything to me. Those last weeks he'd been so weak, his words barely audible. Could he have done something without telling me? That night, I sat in Tom's old armchair, staring at our wedding photo on the mantel. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Had Tom left a secret? Why keep it from me? I thought of Karen's smug face, the way she'd locked me out of the courtroom in my mind's eye. If there was a letter, what did it say? And why was Grayson acting so strange? A flicker of hope stirred in me, but so did fear. Whatever was coming, Karen wouldn't let it go easily. She was ready to fight dirty, and I had to be ready too. I couldn't shake Emily's words about that letter. Sitting in our Raleigh home, surrounded by Tom's things, his fishing hat on the coat rack, his toolbox in the corner, I kept replaying the past, searching for clues. The memories came flooding back, each one a reminder of how I'd poured my heart into this family, only to be pushed aside. Years ago, when Michael was still in high school, I noticed the first cracks. He was Tom's shadow, always helping in the garage, laughing over old car magazines. But when Karen entered the picture, things shifted. I remembered one Christmas, maybe 10 years back, when we were all crowded in the living room, tinsel sparkling on the tree. Karen, new to the family, sat on the couch, scrolling her phone while we opened gifts. I'd knitted her a scarf, nothing fancy, just something to show I cared. She took one look, said, "Oh, cute," and tossed it aside. Michael laughed it off, but I saw Tom's jaw tighten. "She's just tired," he whispered to me later. I wanted to believe him. Then there was the time Tom got sick, about 2 years before he passed. I was the one who took him to every doctor's appointment, sitting in sterile waiting rooms, holding his hand through bad news. I'd cook his favorite meatloaf even when he could barely eat, just to see him smile. Karen? She'd show up once in a blue moon, always with an excuse. "Work's crazy," she'd say, checking her watch. One day I overheard her on the phone outside our house talking to Lisa. "This is such a hassle," she groaned. "I mean, he's not even my dad." I stood frozen in the kitchen, a dish towel in my hand, feeling like I'd been slapped. Michael was there too, but he didn't say a word. Emily, though, was my rock. Even from Seattle, she'd call every night asking about Tom's meds, listening to me cry. Once she flew in for a weekend, helping me clean the house while Tom slept. "Mom, you don't deserve this," she said, scrubbing dishes beside me. "You've always been there for us." Her words kept me going, but they couldn't erase the sting of Karen's dismissal, or Michael's silence. The worst memory was a month before Tom died. Karen came over, all smiles, asking about the estate. I was exhausted, changing Tom's sheets, when she cornered me. "You must be so tired, Scarlett," she said, her voice syrupy. "Why not let us handle the house after, I stared at her, stunned. Tom was still alive, and she was already carving up our life. I told her we'd talk later, but her words stuck with me, like a splinter I couldn't pull out. The day of the will reading came too fast. We gathered in Grayson's office again, the same stuffy room with its creaky chairs and faint smell of old coffee. My stomach was in knots as I sat between Emily and Uncle Ray, who gave me a reassuring nod. Across the table, Karen sat next to Michael, her posture perfect, a notebook in her lap like she was ready to take inventory. Michael looked pale, his eyes fixed on the table. The air was thick, every glance loaded with suspicion. Grayson cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses. "Let's begin," he said, his voice steady but tense. He started reading Tom's will, his words slow and deliberate. The room was silent except for the rustle of papers. He listed small bequests first, Tom's watch collection to Michael, a savings bond for Emily's kids, some cash for charity. I held my breath, waiting for the big one. Our house, our savings, the life we'd built. Then it came. The primary residence at 214 Maple Street, along with all remaining financial assets, shall go to Michael and Karen Wilson. My heart stopped. Karen let out a small, smug, "Oh," and squeezed Michael's hand. He didn't look up, but I saw his shoulders relax. Emily grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "Mom," she whispered, her voice shaking. I couldn't speak. The room spun. Our home, the one we'd paid off over 30 years, where we'd raised our kids, where Tom and I danced in the kitchen, was gone. Just like that. Karen's eyes met mine, gleaming with victory. "It's for the best, Scarlett," she said softly, like she was comforting me. "You'll be happier in a smaller place." I wanted to scream, to throw something, but I sat frozen, my hands clenched in my lap. Grayson kept reading, but I barely heard him. All I could see was Karen's smirk, the way she leaned into Michael, already planning how they'd redecorate my home. The silence in the room was suffocating. Uncle Ray shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting to Grayson. Emily's hand trembled in mine. I felt like I was drowning, like everything Tom and I had built was slipping through my fingers. I thought of his last words to me. Keep our home safe. I'd failed him, or so I thought. The air in Grayson's office felt like it could snap. I sat there, numb, my hands still clenched, Emily's grip tight on my arm. Karen's smug smile burned into me, her notebook now closed as if she'd already won. Michael stared at the table, his face unreadable. I was ready to stand, to walk out and figure out how to start over, when Grayson cleared his throat again. "There's one more thing," he said, his voice quieter now, almost hesitant. He pulled a sealed envelope from his desk. The paper yellowed and crinkled. My heart skipped. Everyone leaned forward, even Karen, her smile faltering. "This is a letter Tom gave me 2 weeks before he passed," Grayson said, adjusting his glasses. He was very specific about when to open it. He broke the seal, and the sound seemed to echo in the silent room. Karen shifted in her seat, her eyes narrowing. Michael finally looked up, confused. Emily squeezed my hand harder. Grayson began reading, his voice steady but heavy with weight. "To my family, if you're hearing this, I'm gone. But I need to set things right. My original will was written years ago, but I've seen things change. Scarlett has been my heart, my home, my everything. She deserves what we built together." My breath caught. Karen's face went pale, her lips parting. Grayson kept reading. "I hereby amend my will. The house at 214 Maple Street, all savings and any remaining assets go to my wife, Scarlett Wilson. Michael, Emily, I love you both, but your mother earned this. She's the one who kept our family whole." Grayson paused, looking at me. Tom added a note here. "Scarlett, keep our home safe. You're stronger than you know." The room erupted. Karen shot to her feet, her chair scraping the floor. "This is ridiculous!" she shouted, her voice shrill. "That can't be legal. He was sick, probably out of his mind." Michael grabbed her arm, whispering, "Karen, sit down." But she yanked away, her face red. "No, we were promised that house." I sat frozen, my heart pounding, tears welling up. Emily let out a shaky laugh, whispering, "Dad?" Uncle Ray nodded at me, a small smile on his face like he'd known something was coming. Grayson raised a hand for silence. The letter was notarized, witnessed, and dated. It's legally binding. He looked at Karen, his tone firm. Tom was of sound mind. I was there. Karen's mouth opened, then closed, her eyes darting around like a trapped animal. Michael slumped in his chair, rubbing his face. The room fell into a stunned silence, the kind that makes your ears ring. I couldn't believe it. Tom had protected me, even from beyond. Our home, our life. It was still mine. Karen stormed out, slamming the door so hard the window rattled. Michael followed, muttering an apology under his breath. I didn't move, just sat there, clutching Tom's words in my mind. Emily hugged me, tears streaming down her face. "He did it, Mom. He made sure you'd be okay." I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The days after the will reading were a whirlwind. Karen called Michael nonstop, leaving voicemails I could hear from across the room, angry rants about unfairness and what's owed. Michael came by the house a week later, alone, his shoulders hunched. "Mom, I'm sorry," he said, standing in our kitchen. "Karen," she got in my head. "I should have stood up for you." I wanted to be angry, but he looked so broken. I hugged him, telling him we'd work through it. He promised to talk to Karen, to set things right with the kids. I hoped he meant it. Emily stayed with me for a week, helping me sort through Tom's things. We laughed, cried, and planted new flowers in the garden he loved. The house felt alive again, like Tom's spirit was still there, watching over us. Neighbors stopped by, offering casseroles and kind words. Even Uncle Ray called, saying, "Tom always knew you were the strong one, Scarlett." I didn't feel strong, but I was starting to believe I could be. Looking back, I realized this wasn't just about the house or the money. It was about loyalty, about the promises we make and keep. Karen wanted to take more than she deserved, but Tom saw through it. He made sure I'd have a place to call home, a place to heal. I didn't need to rub it in anyone's face. I just needed to live with dignity, the way Tom always did. As I sit in our living room now, the same one where we danced to old records, I feel him with me. I'll keep this home safe, just like he asked. And I'll keep our family's heart alive, even if it's just me and Emily for now. Hey, what did you think of this story? Drop a comment and let me know. Did Karen get what she deserved, or should I have handled things differently? And if you loved this twist, hit that subscribe button for more stories like this. Your support keeps these tales coming.